Okay, what do you guys think? Do you guys think Donda's gonna drop like today? Because I'm recording this 4 minutes before it's meant to drop at midnight ET, and it's not looking promising. But I listened to the live stream the other day, and it sounded really good. So, hi everyone, SMAM here, waiting for the Donda drop, and in the meantime, doing another reaction video. And this time, we are going back to business on this channel, and I'm doing another random album reaction now. If you guys don't know how this series works, super simple. I have this chart full of classic albums, famous albums, critically acclaimed albums, and I'm going to use a random number generator to pick a random album from that chart. So this is really fun. It requires me to sort of go outside my comfort zone and expand my musical horizons, which stagnated for a bit, which is why I started this. And yeah, hopefully I'll be discovering one of my new favourite albums. Okay, so as you can see, I have the full chart of albums up here. Honestly, I don't really have any preferences to what I want to listen to, although I could use something a bit chill today, maybe like a classic jazz album, or maybe a sort of a down-tempo hip-hop or electronic album. I don't really want a classic. I'm not really in a classics mood today, but anything else would be good. And, you know, even if I do get a classic, it'll probably end up being an amazing album, so, you know, who cares? And yeah, I think that's it. Without further ado, let's get on to it. I have the random number generator up here, loaded up with 1 to 35, because it would be 1 to 37, but I've listened to all the top row albums, the, you know, top tier classics. So I say we get into this. The row of albums that I will be picking from today is 9. Of course we get classics. Fuck me. Of course we get classics after I say I don't want classics. Okay, so not only are we in classics, but we're in the first row of classics, and wow, okay. Some pretty intimidating classics here. Like, these are big names, wow. So we start off with 3 Velvet Underground albums, which I've wanted to, I love, you know, Velvet Underground's first album, but it's the only album that I've listened to, so I can't wait to hear the others. In particular, White Light, White Heat is an album that I've wanted to listen to for ages, and I've anticipated I'll love. I've thought that for a long time, and so I am hoping for that. What else have we got? We got 2 Beatles albums, which I don't know. Is my video going to get like taken down if I do a Beatles reaction? I feel like I feel like they're too big, because normally I sort of profit off tackling some smaller artists that don't really have, you know, the corporate overlords coming down and copyright striking everything. But yeah, so I have 2 Beatles albums that I haven't listened to. I mean, obviously I know, you know, isolated songs from those albums, but as a whole, I have not listened to those albums. Got Leonard Cohen, got Love, I think is that band? Yeah, Love Forever Changes. Tom Waits and Paul McCartney. So these are A tier classics, like A tier classics, and this is about where you can say, why haven't you listened to these albums before? And to that I say, I'm sorry, I don't really have an excuse. So what do we got here? I've listened to The Doors, that Rolling Stones album, which is really good, and Sgt. Pepper's. So got 9 options to choose from here. Sort of in anticipation of what I'm going to get. Let's see. The album that I will be listening to today is 6. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh my god, no way. Okay. This is intimidating as a music reviewer, because I'm going to tackle and react to what is, I mean, one of the most famous albums of all time, and one of the most acclaimed albums of all time, one of the most beloved albums of all time, and also one of the albums that, like, has been so culturally enshrined that I feel like it's sort of hard to have an opinion on it, you know? I mean, I haven't listened to the album in full, and there's a bunch of tracks on. In fact, I'd say most tracks on that album I haven't heard before. But I know of them, and I know, you know, how huge and culturally significant Revolver is, just as a monolith of, you know, 20th century Western music. I mean, it's not quite on the level of St. Abbey Road, but oh my god, I'm tackling Revolver. I swear to god, if this gets stupid copyright struck down, I feel like Beatles are, I feel like they'd be pretty clandestine with this sort of uploading music to YouTube thing, but we'll see, and we'll keep our fingers crossed. I'm listening to Revolver, guys. Wow. Okay, so I've done some research, and so it looks like I can't upload this on YouTube. Like, I can't, if I have the actual audio playing of Revolver, I can't put this on YouTube, which is deeply unfortunate, and I don't know why it's so predatory when you can just like have the videos demonetized, but whatever. So I can't have it on YouTube. So what I'm thinking, because I still want to react to this, and I still want to allow you to see me reacting to this. So what I'm thinking is I'm going to do it. I'm going to react to this. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the actual audio of me of like when the song's playing. So in the times when the song's playing, this video will be silent. So I'll be dancing, I'll be moving along, doing whatever. But during that time, it's going to be 100%. It's as I said, it's going to be 100% quiet and silent on this video. What I'm going to do as a solution to that is it involves a bit of interactivity from you. So this is going to be a bit weird, but what I want you to do is if you're interested in doing this, I'm going to like have this thing on screen that's saying when the song starts playing. And when that happens, I think what you can do is just have the song, like press play on your own player or whatever with the song. So you can see me actually like reacting to it in real time, and you can hear the song as well, where I am in the song, if that makes sense. So again, it requires some interactivity from you, but I don't want to be defeated by this stupid copyright strike thing again, because it's happened on a ton of videos so far. A ton of videos, and in fact, it's almost more lucky to find a video where it doesn't happen nowadays. So basically what I'm going to do is have silent audio just for the bits while the song's playing. During that time, press play on your phone, your laptop, whatever you're watching this on, and have the song playing in the background so you can see me actually reacting to things in live time. I'll pause. I'll tell you when to pause if I feel like pausing mid-song and giving you some thoughts. I'll do that. I'll do that too, and I'll have to sort of, I guess during the song, because you won't be able to hear me speak, right? I'll have to like do hand signals to, can maybe learn sign language or something to show how I feel about the track. And then the song will end, and I'll be able to give you full thoughts. So sorry, this is all a bit quite strange, but making the best of a bad situation and all that, I guess. Anyway, so Beatles Revolver. What do I know about this album? So first of all, I'll point out the tracks that I know well. Like, I know obviously because everyone on Earth knows Yellow Submarine quite well. I mean, not like well in a sense like I listen to it regularly, but just through cultural immersion and the omnipresence of Beatles in everyday life. I know Yellow Submarine quite well. I know of Eleanor Rigby. I don't think I've actually listened to it in full though, so that'll be more or less a fresh reaction. However, I know Tomorrow Never Knows extremely well. That is actually, it's still to this day probably my favourite Beatles song that I've heard so far. That it's in all my playlists. That's one that you're not going to really see a fresh reaction on that, because I know that song and love that song so much. So I know intimately Tomorrow Never Knows, and Yellow Submarine I know reasonably well. But the others, surprisingly, I'm actually surprised looking at this track list, I don't really know them that well. They're all very short songs, so they're all I don't think any exceeds 3 minutes. Maybe 3 minutes dead actually. Wow. So short songs. I'm guessing a reasonably short album too. So got some. I mean, this is famous, I think, for being the album before Beatles fully immersed themselves in their experimental edge, which they fully went for in Sgt. Pepper's. And I've heard people say that this is similar to the album before it, Rubber Soul, in that it merges the sort of hyper experimental, hyper on the edge style that Beatles would later go for, with the sort of pop rock sensibility and the Mercy beat of the earlier albums. Now, Again, I don't know how consistently sort of the experimental edge that I talked about is applied. Like, I know Tomorrow Never Knows is still like one of their most out there tracks, and it still sounds out there today, even for me. But I don't know about the rest of the album. So I think that about exhausts my commentary. So I'm going to get started with track one, Taxman, which is 2 minutes. I won't even bother with the track lengths because they're all more or less the same, to be honest. Yeah, so Taxman. So I've never heard this song. I have no idea what this song is. Hopefully it's a good opener. Now, in a moment, you should see this little subtitle on your screen saying, okay, play the song now. I also have timestamps in the description of where exactly to play the song. So, I mean, you can just sit and watch me, like groove along in silence if you want. But it's more fun, obviously, to have or you can skip to the end of the song and just hear my full, unadulterated, uncut thoughts. But it's more fun if you just want to hear the song as I'm dancing. So it's more or less like you're actually watching a proper reaction. So anyway, that's enough preamble from me. We're going to get on to track one. In a moment, you'll see when to start the song. This is Taxman. This is Revolver by the Beatles. I won't have to worry about adjusting volume this time. That's a secret good thing. Let's go. This is Taxman. Okay, an audio should be restored now. I hope that sort of comes across well enough when you're watching this video back, because while I'm filming this, I don't know exactly how I'm going to pull this off. But so Taxman, that was awesome. Like really, really awesome and fresh sounding. Because I think with the Beatles, they have this thing where it's like I sort of assume because they are the forefathers of pretty much all modern rock music. Like that is their reputation in society. I sometimes think that their music is going to sound like clearly like just a template and like the sort of the base form of things that we improved on later. Because I think, yeah, primarily Beatles are known as innovators, but I was surprised by how fresh and interesting that was. Like that was a really, really fun, groovy, excited, whatever. Like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like enthralling track, a really, really enthralling track, and I think there's a ton I can talk about there. So I mean, if you could tell by my my charade sort of posturing there, that bass line was so cool. Like Paul McCartney, I mean, "Come Together" is one of the best bass lines I've ever heard. "Tomorrow Never Knows" has an amazing bass line too. He is just, I feel like he doesn't get enough credit sometimes, just purely as a bassist and how creative he is on that level. He's a truly a genius, and that bass line was just so funky and groovy and cool. I mean, you can hear like the influences of some of the early funk music, I'd say, on that, like black musicians, and also sort of a bluesy sort of thing. It was this cool minor key, the swagger it had going on there, even though the song wasn't swung. It was played completely straight, but it just had this really cool funk and propulsiveness and swagger, which I loved. Awesome element of the track. Then you had, so I think that was John Lennon. So I don't really know. Like I'm a Beatles novice, so I still have trouble sometimes like distinguishing between their voices, because Paul and George and John, they have roughly sort of similar voices. I think you can identify Ringo because he has a much deeper sort of baritone thing going on, but I think that was John Lennon's voice, so I'm guessing that was a John song, more or less. And the lyrics on that were really biting and cynical as well, which is something I didn't expect from this era of Beatles. I mean, lyrics like, I think, "If you get too cold, they'll tax the heat" or stuff. It's clearly just a takedown of capitalism, which I think is quite ahead of its time for 1966. It's still amazing to me this album was recorded in 1966, but I digress. And that was like before. I mean, I guess you had Bob Dylan. Actually, no, you had Bob Dylan before that. Sort of, and I guess Woody Guthrie even before that. Bringing that sort of political bite to rock music, but it's still really interesting because I guarantee, I mean, I haven't heard a full Beatles album before this point in their history, but I guarantee they were not tackling biting indictments of modern capitalism in their previous tracks. So I think those lyrics are really effective and cool. Then we get onto the guitar work, which is great. The like little 2-bar, I'm guessing that was George Harrison. His little 2-bar solos was so cool. He shredded. Like, that was some Jimi Hendrix level shredding. From George Harrison there in the right channel. Really, really, really amazing. Speaking of channels, you can clearly hear that we're still at sort of the beginning of the stereo thing. I'm guessing when this was made, and you can clearly hear that they're just going crazy with it by like it having this really wide and extreme stereo panning. But that's just a little thing. Fantastic guitar work. Great little drum hits. I mean, obviously kudos to Ringo at all times. He's just a really simple and effective drummer, and I like that his groove provided that sort of nice little lurch that really drove the song forward, just with that simple boom ka boom ka ka sort of thing. So that was great. We had some percussion there. Overall just a really cool, effective, and surprisingly fresh song. Like, even to modern ears, that's a really fresh and exciting song. And what a way to start off the album, really, truly. That was so good, in fact, that I'm going to add it to my iTunes library. Taxman, great song. Nice and heavy too. I think some of the softer Beatles songs I've heard, I'm a bit neither here nor there on like the sort of folksier ones. But that had bite, and it had sort of aggression, even though it was a bit muted. It had a sort of a sinister and aggressive edge, which was, I mean, obviously given in part by those lyrics, but also accentuated by the bass and the guitar line. I really liked those. I really liked how it was structured around the sort of dun dun above, I think 2/4. Those hits there after each John line, which were all really cool. I have nothing to complain about with that track. In fact, I have a lot to compliment because everything there was pretty damn fantastic. So I feel like I'm not giving enough commentary on this song. It's like, I feel like no matter how much I give, it's not enough. Considering the sort of weight of Beatles in the scope of music history and how much other people have written and talked about songs like these. But anyway, I digress. So we're going to move on to track 2. This is Eleanor Rigby. Now, this is obviously, I think, a famous one. I think this is is it this or is it Paperback Writer that like is famous for bringing strings to Western rock music. I think it might be this one. I know this is a Paul McCartney track. I know it's one of his most beloved tracks, and one of the biggest songs of all time. I know that genuinely, and it's a song that I think I've heard before, but I barely remember anything about it. Like past this point, again, Yellow Submarine and Tomorrow Never Knows are the two I know, and I barely know the others. So it's pretty rare to see these virgin ears getting exposed to Beatles. Like, I think there are very few people in the world who haven't heard Eleanor Rigby before. So I'm one of them. So I'm a rare commodity. So in a sec, I think I'll get into Eleanor Rigby. I'm just gonna adjust something quickly with the volume. Yep, okay, sorted out. Get Eleanor Rigby queued up on your phone or laptop, iTunes, Spotify, whatever you use. And in a moment you'll see a little subtitle telling you when to play. So this is track 2, Eleanor Rigby. Let's go. Okay, and now you can hear me. Surprise. Um, yeah. Um, no, I mean, what do you say about that? I guess. So that was Eleanor Rigby. One of Paul McCartney's like top 3 most famous songs that he's ever written. Um, I didn't expect. I guess where I can sort of start with that. I didn't expect the whole song to be strings. Like, I knew that this was the one of the first major incorporations of a string orchestra into Western rock music, but I didn't expect literally the whole track, to incorporate a string section, and not only that, but for there to be no like instruments in there at all. Like there were no drums, no bass, so it was just this string orchestra. And I think there was a 4-string orchestra too. Like I heard cellos in there, a double bass. I heard obviously violins and violas. That was literally just Paul McCartney singing over an arrangement, a string arrangement, which is something that's really interesting, and I think you don't even hear that much nowadays in modern music. I mean, you sometimes hear string sections used to sort of back up what's already there on a track, but never as the track in and of itself. So that was really interesting. Um, I mean, in terms of the actual song itself, I'm not like enamored with it. I guess it's sort of hard to, I don't know, fully state my thoughts on that. It's not like it's definitely not like a fun track like you'd call Taxman or Yellow Submarine. I would far from call that like fun. It's very heady, very intellectual, very interesting musical theory things going on. So I think the majority of that, there were like a lot of lines that were that sort of sounded major key, that sounded like these sort of major little runs, but the majority of it was a minor key track, and it was very ominous. To that end, like the lyrics told a story that didn't really seem equally ominous, but I guess there were themes of loneliness, and etc. etc. Um, so yeah, that was really interesting. A very ominous track in the string. Like you had that sort of underlying drone, the dun 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 drone over which you got the da 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 lines, especially in the look at all the lonely people chorus. So yeah, the sort of dark drone of that was interesting and absolutely not what I expected at all. But yeah, again, you had little major key sounding lines, like especially in that harmony in the chorus, which I think sounded like a John harmony. I don't even know. I'm not even going to try and identify singers from this point forward. So yeah, I mean, it's Eleanor Rigby. It's a classic. It's not, in my opinion, a truly enthralling track, nor is it particularly, I think, like exceptionally well written. Even though I think it's very, very pretty, and I like the flirtation with something a bit more ominous and heavy. I like that very much, but I know for some reason I just didn't find that as enthralling and like glorious as Taxman was. Really, I mean, I guess maybe I find. I was about to say, I guess I find, sort of the fun Beatles better, like the more energetic Beatles, but that's not true because Within You Without You is my favourite track on Sgt. Pepper's. So that's probably not a particularly accurate assessment, but yeah. So what we had there, a truly, I think, groundbreaking part of Western music, but nothing I think I've listened to on its own in isolation. And am I going to Beatles hell for saying that? I'm trying to just identify what it was that stopped me from fully lending myself to that. Maybe it could have just been down to like me not really hearing many instances in Western music of a rock track just having like no rock instrumentation at all. Like a lot of, as I said, a lot of songs with string sections I've heard, they have something else to back that up. Like they have a propulsive drum groove or something. But maybe it'll require a few more listens for me to fully just lend myself to the idea of Paul just singing over a string section, which again totally unique and really influential, but never also in my opinion really copied by any other Western musician, or Western pop musician anyway, past this date. So a really fascinating track, really important track. Give me Taxman any day of the week though. So we're going to move on to a track that I've not even heard of, let alone heard. This is track 3, I'm Only Sleeping. 3 minutes on the dot. In a moment, you should get a cue to start playing this on your player. Let's go. This is I'm Only Sleeping. Okay, you can hear this now. That end with the that sort of backmasked guitar was amazing. Like, I wish that could have been the formation of a whole new track. Like, I'm guessing that was George's guitar, and you heard little snippets of it throughout the track. This backwards guitar just coming out of the. That's what I was doing with this. It's like coming out of the sort of soundscape and right into your face. Which I'm guessing was included, because the theme of the song is like dreaming and sort of a slightly woozy, half awake, half asleep sort of state, that is like familiar to anyone who has an afternoon doze. And hence you sort of get that dreamy, woozy, slightly off kilter backwards guitar coming at your face, which I thought was really well placed and complemented the track quite well and complemented the theme. I think it's little things like that are just like, you can tell that the Beatles are musical geniuses. Like just things that a lot of artists wouldn't even think of including, that don't come off as tried or anything. They come off as really complementing the track. But anyway, I digress massively. So throughout the track you got that, but towards the end there, in that outro, these sounds just sort of coalesced into this big like sort of barbed wire massive guitar sound, which was really awesome. And that could have been a great lead into the next track if that was a thing back then. But I loved that. I also loved, another thing I loved about that track was the double bass. I think the double bass was really cool. I like there's little just licks at the end of phrases that I'm guessing that was Paul playing that, but who knows. The little double bass licks at the end of some of the phrases were really cool. They sort of gave the track a nice jazzy sort of tinge. And I really like the percussive thunky sound of double bass. Thunky. That's a technical expression, guys. So I love that sound, and I think that was used to great effect on that track. Otherwise, though, I don't know. I can't say I loved that. And I feel this is the problem with modern commentary on the Beatles, because like there's nothing I can say will change anyone's mind on the Beatles. Like it changed the reputation of how the Beatles are perceived. Like, they are a cultural monolith. They are a monolith of Western society, let alone Western music. And, it feels wrong criticizing them and treating them as anything more than a historical document. But I guess that's what I'm going for. I'm going for sort of a more refreshing approach, because I'm just putting the fact aside that the Beatles are so sort of deified for the purpose of the reaction, and just giving my raw, unfiltered takes on these songs as songs. And I wasn't a big fan of that song. I don't know. I thought it was kind of clunkily written. Like, the parts of it was not nice, but the parts of it were nice. But like the na 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 na, I didn't like that. Especially seeing as how it came after the opening couple bars of each sort of musical phrase. I didn't like that. I think that didn't really mesh together that well. It's one of the things I sort of have trouble sometimes with some Beatles melodies, because they make very strange and unconventional choices. I have a similar problem with "I Want to Be Your Man." Like the verses of "I Want to Be Your Man" are these really cool, propulsive, groovy, like almost Bo Diddley things, and then the chorus is this excitable sort of major chord thing, and I never enjoy that. And I think I get a similar problem with some of these Beatles songs. Sometimes, in my opinion, the way that verses go into choruses and even within verses, different parts of the verse sort of mesh into one another, I have problems with, and I don't think sometimes it's that well done and that smooth, in my opinion. That's just a small thing with Beatles. The only problem I have, or like judgment I have of the Beatles as a whole, sometimes they have reasonably strong musical phrases and melodies in isolation, but when they put them together, it comes across as kind of clunky and forced, just in my opinion, sometimes. And I think that was a good example of that. I mean, as for the instrumentation, I think the production could have been a bit punchier. I think the drums could have probably used being in this just the center channel. I think they got lost a bit with the acoustic guitar and sparkly sounds going on in the left channel. And yeah, I mean, definitely, I can see why I haven't heard of that track because it's certainly not one of the most essential Beatles tracks, that's for sure. But you know, I've heard much worse. So it's it's again tough because the Beatles are a cultural monolith. Nothing I can say will change your opinions on them or anyone's opinions on them. But this is just a raw reaction. I'm treating this like this might as well be a what's a really like this might as well be a Nickelback album as far as I'm concerned. I'm just treating it in isolation and not considering everything around it. So we're going to track 4, which is called Love You Too. So they have a Love Me Do and a Love You Too. That's kind of ambitious. 2 minutes 59, very short still. Let's see what this sounds like. In a second, you'll be starting the song. Let's go. Oh, I wish that didn't fade out at the end there. That was building up to something so cool as well. That just elevated the tempo and elevated the energy up to 11 at the end there. I wish that did not fade out. I could have used another 10 minutes of that track, genuinely. Um, one of the cool things with the Beatles that I notice, I'm going to talk about them out of isolation now. I'm just going to quickly talk about their legacy. But you notice little things that other bands have quite possibly ripped off from the Beatles, in my opinion. When you listen to some of their tracks for the first time, because again they're so ubiquitous in culture. That melody, which was just ace, like awesome melody. I love the sort of lilting descent of that melodic line there. That was absolutely fantastic. But Yeah, no, that had a real callback for me because it's very similar to a little. In fact, it's actually identical to a melody used in a song called "Raising the Sparks" by Akon Family, which is a song I really love, and it's also a song that's going to be permanently ruined for me because I know that they just copied that from that song. Like it's literally an identical melody, and it's funny whether that was conscious or unconscious. So many people just take influence from the Beatles, even if they're the more obscure songs. Um, but yeah, anyway, so that was called Love Me Too. Wow. Like imagine buying this just imagine buying this album in 1966 and like thinking it's going to be similar to their earlier stuff. And then first you get Eleanor Rigby, which actually no, hold on. First you get Taxman, which is like this cynical takedown of capitalist society. Then you get Eleanor Rigby, which is just Paul McCartney singing over string orchestra. Then you get the previous track, whose name I've already forgotten, which is kind of a bit irrelevant. But and then you get Love Me Too, which is like the forefather. That was the forefather of all. I'm guessing that was their first flirtation with Indian Hindustani classical music in Beatles songs, because if so, that's the forefather too. Like that's the source of the Nile for the pervasive influence of Indian sort of drone and the use of sitar and rock music from that point forward. Yeah, wow. Not only was that a really convincing and effective use of the instruments that Hindustani classical music uses. Like, yeah, there's obviously the sitar, which I'm guessing that was the George Harrison song because he is the guru of the band. Yeah, so you have the sitar, which was almost played like you can hear him sort of calling back to it. I'm guessing he played it, and you can hear him calling back to just his electric guitar because at the end there he was basically taking a sitar solo like he would an electric guitar solo, which I found quite funny. Um, but yeah, you hear sitar, you hear whatever instrument is used for that drone. I actually don't know if that's sitar or something else. You hear tabla, you hear a tambourine too, but we'll forget about that. And you hear his voice, and it's a really, really a fair forgery to use Roger Waters' words, a fair forgery of Hindustani classical music. But more than that, it's a really respectful and knowing take on it, and it wasn't perverted by anything else. It feels like George Harrison truly loved that style of music, and sought to emulate it as best he could, and he did. Like that was a really fantastic track on its own, and in the context of the Beatles discography and really of the Indian music canon as a whole. I love the vocal melody on that. As I said, I love the I loved how it was slightly more energetic and a bit less freeform than Within You Without You, which is the clear parallel with that track. Um, yeah, George Harrison's voice was great. The lyrics, of course, were sort of spiritual and it had again a bit more of a sort of grounded sort of sense of love in them and that sort of all that jazz. But yeah, I think that was pretty ace. Yeah, the tabla was just played great. I don't know if he played all the instruments or if he did the Sergeant Pepper's thing where he brought in a traditional Indian orchestra. No clue. Again, I have no clue about how most of these tracks came into being. But that's another one I'm actually going to add to my iTunes library because, dare I say it, I think that matches the quality of Within You Without You, which is already the best track on Sergeant Pepper's in my mind. And honestly, I think so far, judging by the first four tracks, this is better than Sergeant Pepper's so far. Hot take. I think that the general quality of the songwriting here and memorability is so far. I'm not gonna. I don't want to jinx it, but so far higher than Sergeant Pepper's. Yeah. What apart from I'm Only Sleeping, what a good first four tracks. Wow. You know, funnily enough, the album that is a cultural touchstone for so many people is actually quite good. Who would have thought, huh? Who would have thought? Sarcasm, if you couldn't tell. Okay, so we're up to track 5, which is called Here, There, and Everywhere. Short one, 2 minutes 24. Yeah, who knows? Another good song, hopefully. Let's go. All right. All right. Pretty. Yeah, really pretty. I mean, not a whole lot to say about that, I guess, because it was very short. I guess one of the things I love about the Beatles to that point is how succinct they are. Like, their songs sort of tell and communicate things in 2 minutes or 3 minutes, while other bands would do in eight. Like, genuinely, like a band like Pink Floyd, is, as much as I love them, and they've sort of been the touchstone to my life, whereas the Beatles is for so many people. But they're very long-winded. Like, they don't know how to, especially once Sid left, they don't know how to do things like in a brief amount of time. And just I don't know what it is about the Beatles. I don't know what it is about Lennon and McCartney as a songwriting duo, but they're just the brevity of their sort of musical expression is really effective and really gorgeous. I think that was all round really pretty. While it's not top tier, that set out to do exactly what it did exactly what it set out to do. It set out to be, this dreamy, emotionally in tune, very, calm and I guess placid song, and that it was really pretty, gorgeous. I don't know if that was a McCartney or a Lennon song, but whoever that wrote the lyrics had a really convincing and concise expression of love. I love here, there, and everywhere as a title, and just as a phrase, that's really pretty. And everything about the arrangement and the song really went to great lengths to communicate that sort of dreamy love. I mean, you had the backing vocals in the left channel, which were really good for padding out the mix and giving the song a really light and airy feel. Ringo kept his drum pattern super light, super low in the mix. The guitar accompaniment was really sort of sparing. At points, I mean, there was one little guitar line about halfway through, which I wish I could point out with more specificity because you can't hear me while I'm reacting to it. But this one guitar line, I think from George, that was sort of this ascending, descending thing that was quite gorgeous. I thought that was great. I thought just the really light guitar chordal work was cool. Again, it's not the sort of song that I'd listen to every day of the week, and it's not the sort of song I'd probably listen to outside of the context of the album, but in the context of the album, I think that was really gorgeous. I think it works to sort of counterbalance and offset the headiness of songs like Eleanor Rigby, and particularly its direct predecessor, Love You Too. Because that didn't need much, like, on an intellectual level to enjoy. That was just, it was all there. It was this dreamy soft rock song that just painted a picture of this beautiful requited love. And sometimes I think it's good to judge songs on their own merits and also by the standards that they set themselves, because whoever wrote that sounds like a sort of song McCartney would write. So I'm just going to go with McCartney, but I have no idea. Let's just say it was McCartney. McCartney set out to write a beautiful love song, and he wrote a beautiful love song, and he did it the best he possibly could. Now, are there better formats for songs, or better sort of inspirations for songs? Absolutely, but by the standards he set himself, that was really gorgeous, and also by any standards, I think that was a pretty considered, delicate, and just generally well-written track, and I have absolutely no qualms with that as well. No, it's certainly not the criticisms that its vaguely vaguely similar cousin I'm Only Sleeping has for me. I think that achieved everything in terms of dreaminess and just considered songwriting that Track 3 couldn't. So stay pressed, I'm Only Sleeping, but Here, There and Everywhere is your much improved cousin. Yeah, so overall I really liked that, and I think this album is definitely shaping up to be better than Sgt. Pepper's. But I've only heard 2 Beatles albums, so in the future I'll probably hear the others and have another new favourite, but I think this is already my favourite, especially knowing what's coming in tomorrow. Never knows, but I know what's coming in track 6, definitely. This is Yellow Submarine. I believe this is a Ringo song. Well, not written by Ringo, but this is sung by Ringo. Um, I think this song is fun, but I obviously, I mean, I probably haven't given it like a really deep listen like I'm going to now. So maybe I'll unlock something new in myself that I love about it. But until then, I'm going to say I think this song is a lot of fun, but there's not much really going on there, is there? And I think something like Octopus's Garden is equally fun. That's the song I always compare Yellow Submarine to, Octopus's Garden, that I'm most familiar with. And I think Octopus's Garden is just Yellow Submarine, but better. But, on this listen, I haven't listened to it in full, like, again, in a really considered listen, probably ever, to be honest. So I say we hear it. This is track 6, Yellow Submarine. Let's go. I mean, guys, it's Yellow Submarine. Like, seriously, what else? What else is there to say about it? Like, it's Yellow Submarine. It's a fun song. It's fantastic for a sing along. Just with friends. It's obviously one of the most ubiquitous melodies in modern in 20th century music. Like the Yellow Submarine chorus is up there with like the Smells Like Teen Spirit intro, or like My Heart Will Go On by Cher or something, or like Billie Jean by Michael Jackson, the bass line of that. It's like one of those sort of music elements that every single person knows, no matter where you are in Western society. Every single person has that somewhere in their brain. So um it's would I say it's a particularly like amazing song or a particularly well written song? I mean, it's fun. It's well written in the sense that it's fun. Like if you're sort of judging a song by the standards it set itself, I think the Beatles are almost universally masters at like aiming for something and getting there 100%. Like that song got there 100%. exhausted all of the capital it could out of that particular avenue. I just think it's an avenue that isn't going to be good for much more than sort of slightly vapid, slightly shallow, but nevertheless really engaging fun. So it's a really fun track. I mean, I guess there was some musically complex, like the chord changes were sort of quite interesting. Not something you often hear in pop music, in the verses and the choruses. I also don't seem to remember on past listens for some reason. Maybe I just wasn't paying attention, but not enough. But I don't remember that sort of sound effect, music concrete thing happening, especially in the second half of the track. I don't remember any sound effects at all, really. But yeah, they clearly raided the EMI sound effects vault, and got a bunch in there. And to their credit, they were well mixed and sort of they fit the harmless fun vibe of the song really well. They sort of added to the goofiness and the just again sort of slightly shallow but nevertheless really enjoyable, like jolt of the not jolt. What's the like? Just swing of the track. It's sort of a track with this like up down sort of martial swing to it. So I think the sound effects added to that fine. Ringo's voice is not very good. It's not very good. I mean, it's fine, like it's competent, but I would just say this: there's a reason you can tell why he wasn't one of the lead singers of the Beatles in any significant extent. Like I think he had one song per album, right, that he generally sung, and I can see why they only gave him one, honestly. But yeah, so you know. His voice was, I mean, or any of the other singers, like, I think that could have used a really nice, delicate John Lennon treatment, maybe in the vocals. So Ringo wouldn't have been my first choice for that, but, his deeper voice, I guess, added its own little bit of character to the song. I do feel sorry for him. I imagine he has to play that pretty much every concert he goes to. I imagine he'd be so sick of it. After a period of time. But yeah, what can you do? I mean, he's laughing all the way to the bank, so I'm sure he's not complaining. Yeah, it's Yellow Submarine. It's one of the most famous songs of all time. One of the most famous Beatles songs of all time. It's funny when one of the most famous songs of all time isn't even the most famous Beatles song. But yeah. And, it's not a song that I'm ever going to listen to on its own outside of the context of this album. And I guess maybe if it was like totally fresh and I'd never heard it before and it wasn't as ubiquitous as it was, maybe if that were the case, then I could consider myself just listening to it for fun. But like, no one's listening to Yellow Submarine just on its own, really, to be honest. So not anymore anyway, unless you're looking for some fun. But yeah. It did what it set out to do. It was really fun. It's one of the biggest songs of all time, and it's just some jaunty, effortless, and reasonably considered fun. Like, what more do you want, seriously? So, returning to the region of tracks that I have no idea as to what they sound like, we're moving on to She Said, 2 minutes 36. Who knows? Again, I have no idea. I've never heard of this track in my life. So let's see if it's a hidden classic or a hidden gem. And after this track, we've been spending a lot of time on this album, but, I think Revolver deserves it. Yeah, so after this track, we'll be at the halfway point. So let's hopefully it ushers in the second half of the album pretty nicely. Let's go. they're masters at fading out at really inopportune times because that last 10 seconds was going to this double time feel, courtesy of Ringo, which I thought would have been really fun to explore, but whatever. So that was She Said, She Said. All the things she said, fuck, I hate Simple Minds. If you're a Simple Minds fan, don't watch this channel. Because fuck, I hate that song. Hate all the things she said. Literally the worst band of the 80s. Anyway, the Beatles. So, I mean, that wasn't, like, a lot of the previous tracks have been, and I don't mean this in a derisive way, so please don't take it that way, but they've been, I guess gimmicky is one way of saying it, but what I mean is more in the sense of, there's like one unique element of each track that really makes it sort of stand apart, from anything else that I've heard the Beatles do. Like, obviously, Taxman had this sort of cynical, snarkiness to it, and Harder Edge, Eleanor Rigby, obviously with the string section, Love You Too, etc., with the Indian instrumentation, so on and so forth. But that felt like the first track that was just like a good solid Beatles song. Like, there were no hugely defining features of that track that really set it apart from the others. But I don't know, I thought it was pretty well written. I liked the vocals. The guitar was lot more of a focus in that track. So some of the guitar work almost seemed to be like modal or something. I heard a lot. It was quite psychedelic. And to that end, I see how the Beatles and an album like that could influence bands like the Grateful Dead that came later. I hear a lot of that in tracks like that. But yeah, there was a real psychedelic edge to that track in the guitar work. I'm guessing courtesy of George Harrison. Drum work was really, again, tight and simple and well considered, and that's Ringo's biggest strength, I think, as a drummer, is that he really doesn't overplay. And the thing I hate most in songs, one of the things I hate most in songs anyway, is when drummers overplay and they just overcomplicate things that should have kept simple. And I mean, I guess Ringo can sometimes keep it a bit too simple, but even on that track, I guess he had some really cool complex feels, which you didn't really hear on any of the other tracks. And I thought quite considered, quite effective drum parts on every track. But on this track, I guess there was a bit more of a sort of complex and jazzy edge to the way he approached the drums. So that was something. In terms of the actual song, like the melody, it was fine. It was nothing particularly remarkable. You have more classic sort of Beatles thing where it's like they sometimes put in bars of 2/4 and, you know, mess around with time signatures a bit. Again, a classic Beatles thing. Yeah, what else? What else to say about that? Oh yeah, the organ. I could hear organ, especially towards the end of the song, which I thought was quite cool. You could tell by this point in the Beatles' history, EMI was just like, all right, you guys have free reign of every single instrument we have at our disposal, which has obviously led to them, you know, using the Indian instruments. And like it's really telling that almost every track has, even if the tracks aren't particularly like unique in sound, like that one was, each track at least has a slightly different sonic and instrumental palette. And on this one, the organ popped up, which was, I think, quite cool. And I mean, it's clear how like much prodigies these guys are just at being able to master every instrument. Like, those four guys coming together is truly like one of the most significant things, I think, to happen in modern history, really. They're just all, it's so rare to have four people, well, 3 plus Ringo. Don't tell Beatles fans I said that, but no, but it's so unique that 4 amazing musicians just came together at that point in history. Anyway, that was a bit of a tangent. Yeah, I think the organ was quite nice on that. It should have been a bit higher in the mix, I think, but other than that, it was quite a nice addition. And yeah, not much else to add. It wasn't one of the most significant or best tracks on the album, but it definitely hasn't taken away from the strength of the album so far. And I think that was a nice capstone to the first half of an album that so far is easily better than Sgt. Pepper's. Easily better than Sgt. Pepper's. I mean, you had a few like bona fide classics there, and of course you had it's just other little more interlude-ish tracks that sort of like added a sort of nice what am I looking for? Like nice transition points between the sort of the major capstones touchstones of the album. And I think the best two tracks of that first half so far have been Taxman and Here, There and Everywhere, both of which were fantastic. So so let's get into the second half now. A lot of shorter tracks from here on out, so I think the longer ones almost done with. We have track 8, which is called Good Day Sunshine. So we got some more happy Beatles here, 2 minutes 9 seconds, very short. Be prepared, get it loaded up. Let's hear it. This is Good Day Sunshine, track 8. So even in a track that seems relatively straightforward like that one, you have a lot of still experimental, just little touches, and a track like that obviously doesn't fully commit to it. In fact, far from it. But little touches like that ending there with the delay, which I don't know why that was there. I mean, that didn't really need to be there on a song as straightforward as that. But that's a little experimental touch to note. Also, I think Buzz, I'd have to listen to it again, but there was something weird happening time signature wise. I think either they missed a beat or added a beat sometimes in the Good Day Sunshine choruses. I think it was added a beat. It sounded like there was sometimes a bar of 5/4 in there in the choruses, which I only noticed it at the end though, to be fair. But I'm guessing it happened the whole way through, all 2 minutes of it. Yeah. So that's interesting. And you sort of something you wouldn't really notice unless you listen to it, because there were no like offbeats in that track. Because the way Ringo played, he accented every single note with the snare, so there were no clear distinguishing factors that normally point out strange, wacky time signature fuckery. But yeah, so otherwise, I mean, a pretty insignificant song, right? I mean, I don't think even the most ardent of Beatles fans would argue with that. That's certainly more in the vein of Yellow Submarine, and if we look at other albums like like When I'm 64 or With a Little Help from My Friends or something, except I think both of those songs are better than this one. But this sort of felt like an early version of the things that were fully realised in that track. So yeah, it had the same sort of jaunty feel that again Yellow Submarine had and those tracks have, with the sort of again the every beat accented Lots of interesting piano work, made heavy use of the lower register of the piano. So that sort of added the nice bassy component, which the vocals sort of sat over in the higher register, which created this nice sort of contrast and push and pull. I mean, the melody was nothing special. It was a classic sort of Beatles love song, in my estimation anyway. Yeah, melody wasn't particularly special. Some nice sort of harmonies in the chorus there. Um, and what else is there to say? Like, it's hard to. These guys are so innovative, but sometimes they have songs that are just, again, fun and it don't have to be really read into too much. I mean, if there's something I'm missing in a track like that you'd like to point out to me, please point it out to me. Like, comment it here, or send me a message or whatever, and I'll reply and thank you for it. But yeah, if you'd like to share anything about any of these songs, please do. But I mean, sometimes with Beatles, as much of a cultural touchstone and landmark as they are, sometimes they just have fun songs that don't need to be read into too much, and I think that was one of them. By no means a masterpiece of a song, by no means one of the songs that I think I'm going to return to on its own outside of the album. And in fact, I think it's probably so far the second weakest on the album. I think I'm Only Sleeping is my least favourite so far, which I think I'm Only Sleeping, is that the longest track? Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong. Wow, 3 minutes, huge. Yeah, felt like the longest track. That was the most boring track in my opinion. But yeah, I think it was better than I'm Only Sleeping. And again, if you want a fun sort of jaunt, I think unlike Yellow Submarine, it didn't go all the way there, and wasn't like completely successful in achieving that goal, but it's certainly passable. Like, I haven't heard anything worse than passable on this album, and to that end, there are only really a couple tracks that are just at the passable level. And I think if you compare it to an album like Sgt. Pepper's, I think that album itself has a lot more tracks that I just consider like at the passable level, like Fixing a Hole, like what's another good example, like Being for the Benefit of Mr. Kite, Good Morning too, which I think is kind of fun, but it's still sort of at that decent level. But otherwise, we've had much higher highs on this album, and much more consistent highs on this album than we have on Sgt. Pepper's so far. Even if Good Day Sunshine isn't one of those, I still respect that. It could have been much, much worse with a lesser band, I think. So there's that. I'm really enjoying this album, and to push forward, we're going to go to track 9, And Your Bird Can Sing. Very short again, 2 minutes. I have heard of this song. But I've only heard of the title, and I don't think I've ever listened to it. But who knows, it might unlock some memories. I just saw later in the track list, I completely missed this. Got to Get You Into My Life is on this album. I had no idea. For some reason, when I looked at the track list, I completely glazed over when I saw that. I just glossed over it. But yeah, it's on this album. Obviously, I know that song. Not intimately. It's similar to a Yellow Submarine sort of thing, where I haven't listened to it, intently ever. But yeah, obviously I know Got to Get You Into My Life. So that's another track I do know. But that's later on. That's just by the by. Let's listen to And Your Bird Can Sing, 2 minutes long. Start it about now. Um, I'll keep forgetting that I don't have to pause. Um, so that was definitely a John Lennon track. Felt like it had his sensibility. I think that's his voice. I think I'm getting better at recognizing the difference between their voices. Yeah, I didn't love it. It definitely had a very similar feel to the first, oh, sorry, to the previous track. I think it had that sort of upbeat jauntiness that the previous track did, but it wasn't in the same like vein of just pure fun that it was. I think they were going for a more mature sort of rock edge there. I mean, some of George's guitar work was quite complex and layered there. However, I didn't think the melody was anything special. I think some of the chord changes were a bit vague and strange on that. I think the bass line was fine. The drumming was fine. I don't know. That's probably the one I have the least to say about because that just felt just a rock track that could have been on pretty much any other Beatles album, especially the earlier stuff that I've heard, but just not as good in my opinion. That's actually probably could be my least favorite or maybe second least favorite so far, only because it just didn't seem to take as many risks or do as many interesting things as the previous tracks did, and that's fine. But in I feel like when I say that a lot of these songs hold up nowadays just on listen, I think it's because they still have a sort of risk and edginess to them that a lot of music of the time didn't, and that sort of keeps them fresh. But that felt comparatively by the numbers. Like that felt more or less just in the vein of a classic Beatles pop rock track that again could have been on any of the earlier albums. Really, I didn't listen to the lyrics intimately, so maybe if I did listen to the lyrics more, I'd have something more interesting to say about that track. But yeah, that was the one, in my opinion, that took the least risks so far. In terms of anything, like there wasn't much interesting instrumentation. It was just drums, bass, electric guitar, John Lennon double tracked vocals, and percussion, and then out. And I feel like it was also maybe a bit too short to have any sort of lasting impact on me. Whereas, I mean, that shouldn't be, that in isolation, that's not necessarily a problem because, I mean, what like the other short tracks, like Here, Then, Everywhere is short. I liked that a lot. Um, so length isn't a problem in isolation, but a track like that, especially, I feel like if there just isn't a whole lot of song there to really sink my teeth into, sometimes length helps just to like drill it into me, if only by repetition. But yeah, the problem with that is it was fine. Like it wasn't a bad track. There's been no bad Beatles tracks. I don't think, from what I've heard, there are no Beatles tracks that I actually call comfortably bad. But again, it was just fine, and even it was fine and also less interesting than the previous track. So it was fine from a songwriting perspective and less formally or musically experimental than the previous tracks. So I think that what that means is that I'll probably forget about it until the next time I listen to this album. So what can you do? That was uh, a bit. I mean, again, I guess it slightly takes away from the rest of the album. I don't think that needed to be there, but I don't know. I don't know how any of these more obscure songs are received within the Beatles community because that song could be beloved for all I know. But I'm just telling you my face value reaction to a track like that. I didn't love that. I think by any sure extent. I still think I'm Only Sleeping though is better. Is worse. Sorry, rather I think this is better than I'm Only Sleeping. Even though I'm Only Sleeping took more risks. Anyway, so let's just move on. We're going to move on to track 10. It's called For No One. Shortest one, I believe, on the album. 1 minute 59. Yeah, let's just hope there's a bit more meat here. A bit more to sink my teeth into. We'll see. Let's go. Wow. Okay, that actually ended kind of abruptly. I expected more of a sort of slower and more progressive outro than that, but that didn't resolve itself at the end, which is interesting. Tonally, it did not resolve itself at the end. It ended on the on I think the second last chord of the phrase, which is quite strange. Sort of adds a bit of tension to it. But anyway, yeah, I loved that. I actually love that. Hot take, better than Eleanor Rigby, and no one's going to agree with me there, but I think that was a Paul McCartney song. I think I'm getting better at recognizing their voices. I'm 90% sure that that's Paul McCartney, and in my opinion, better than Eleanor Rigby. I actually think it did what Eleanor Rigby did, with less formal experimentation, but still better, in my opinion. So, just from a songwriting perspective, that was really beautiful. I loved the melody. I loved the na 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 na. I loved this bit, the bit where it went na 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 na. I liked that sort of semitone change there in the chord. Whatever that chord change there was brilliant. Like, I think it was only sounded by a step or a half step, which is unconventional and sort of has this slight sense of tension to it, but it was really like engaging and musically pleasing tension, in my opinion. I'm trying to think of another song that uses that chord change. In the morning. I think The Narrow Way by Pink Floyd has a very similar thing. Part 3 of The Narrow Way by Pink Floyd has a very similar thing, but I think it's actually done better here. I think Paul had created a really beautiful and well-written melody there. The chorus was great, had a lot of payoff. You could clearly delineate the verses and the choruses from each other. Really sort of cathartic moment in the song where Paul sort of yells his guts out in the upper register of the song. His voice rather. And yeah, I just think the way that was structured was really, really beautiful. Piano work was fantastic. It sort of has that more like, it's not sort of the rich, deep piano sound that you typically expect. I think it's more akin to sort of a harpsichord or something. That like plucky. I was just trying to think of the way to say it. This sort of like shimmering piano sound, which I've heard in a lot of Beatles songs, and I think was common around that era too. Because if you listen to the same sort of piano sound that you'd hear on Care of Cell 44 by the Zombies, which is amazing song, undeniably. Yeah, so that was fantastic. That little, I think it was a French horn. Was that a French horn or some other horn instrument? I'm not sure, but that tiny little solo there was really cool too. The tone of that solo was just really rich and nice and full bodied. Had a triumphant sort of feel to it, which I thought was pretty great. Bass line was really great. It followed the vocals a lot, but there was some interesting little ornaments on the, or like moments of ornamentation rather, on the on sort of the ascent as it followed up with the vocals that were pretty and nice. I think that just the whole word of the day for that is pretty and soothing. It felt like waking up on a sunny spring morning. Truly that track, and it felt like a cool glass of water on a hot summer day. I think really refreshing, sparkling, beautiful and succinct track that did everything and caught my interest in ways that And Your Bird Can Sing didn't. And I think that's just a prime example of how amazing Paul is as a songwriter, assuming that's his song. How amazing it is that he can do all of that in such a short period of time, in such a short song duration. As I said earlier, they're masters of brevity, this band. I think if you say nothing else about the Beatles, it is that they are fantastic at saying so much in so little time. Yeah, so for the shortest track on the album, that felt like one of the most accomplished. Oh, sorry, dropped my phone. I think probably the most accomplished track on the album since probably Here, There and Everywhere, or even Love You Too, honestly. Fantastic, fantastic song. So we're moving into the final sort of closing stretch of the album. We've only got 4 tracks to go. Track 11 is called Dr. Robert, 2 minutes 14. Never heard this title or anything about this song, so we're going to get another totally blind reaction of a Beatles song from me. I can't imagine if you're a hardcore Beatles fan, you're like, when I'm going to these classic tracks, you must be like, oh, he doesn't know what he's getting into, his mind's going to be blown. And hopefully my mind will be blown by this one. This is track 11, Dr. Robert. Get the song loaded up. Yeah, guys, Dr. Robert is 100% a drug dealer. So that was fun, extremely fun. The most fun track, just in I think even more fun than Yellow Submarine. Like that was sort of vapid fun, Yellow Submarine, but this is sort of slightly more energetic and heady fun. I mean, as I said, I think the lyrics had a real sense of humour to them. Like, guarantee this Dr. Robert person, whoever it is, I don't know about Beatles history. I don't know any of this crap. Sounds like he was a drug dealer, and they were well in the, I think they were well in the marijuana slash LSD slash cocaine world by this point. So, tell me if my instincts are right on those lyrics, because Dr. Robert's making you feel fine, whatever he's doing. Cocaine. So yeah, I think the lyrics had this real infectious sense of fun to them, and I think the instrumental as well did too. The instrumental actually reminded me of something like obviously Five Believers by Bob Dylan, like a lot. And I think those two albums were released the same year, and I don't know which came first. I'm guessing possibly this one, but I don't know because it had the same thing, like the same boom clap, boom clap, boom clap. A very simple drum part, the same repetitive guitar work that sort of had this angular, distorted feel to it, and these sort of sardonic, heavily sarcastic lyrics, and I think all of it came together to make just a really fun romp through this energetic rock groove. Yeah, I thought that was terribly fun. That was really effortlessly fun. And again, nothing particularly deep to it. Like, I guess For No One had a bit more sort of like deep musical stuff going on, but that was just pure jaunty fun. Definitely a callback as well, I'd say, to some of their really, really early work, like in the sort of modern Mercy Beat styles. But sort of felt like a raw and more updated take on that more fit sort of where they currently were in their headspace. I don't know who the vocalist was on that. I want to say John, but it also vaguely sounded like George. So I don't know whose song that was or who wrote that or sung that or whatever. So As you can tell, I'm really clueless with the Beatles, but yeah, no, just a ton of effortless fun. I don't think there's much more to say about that. Really actually kind of adds to the album and sort of gives it a bit of an adrenaline shot that it needs, I think, as it's coming into the fourth quarter here. But yeah, absolutely nothing bad to say about it. That was terribly, terribly fun. I enjoyed that. So yeah, you know what? I think we'll just move on because I don't want to, beat a dead horse too much because there's only so many ways I can say that was really enjoyable. So we'll move on to track 12. So final three tracks on the album. This is called I Want to Tell You. That's the Throbbing Gristle lyric. You can't get two more different bands than Beatles and Throbbing Gristle. 2 minutes 27, which is comparatively like a mammoth epic length track by some of the tracks on this, by the standards of some of the tracks on this half of the album. Let's just go. I Want to Tell You. No idea what this sounds like. Ba-bam. Hmm. Oh man, that guitar riff. I just wish they used that guitar riff more in the song because when it started out, it sort of started with that really cool. I think that was Martin Key. Cool, almost like modern sort of indie rock-esque guitar riff. It was really sort of groovy and intimidating almost. And I expected it sort of to launch into that, but that guitar riff only showed up a couple more times in the song, unfortunately. But yeah, I could wax lyrical for days about how good that guitar riff felt at the beginning. But then it sort of went into a jaunty sort of piano thing, which was fine. I don't think it was better than a track like, say, Good Day Sunshine, I think, because it wasn't as fun. Um, I mean, a John Lennon song through and through by the sounds of it. Yeah, again, had that sort of jaunty, upbeat feel to it, same sort of tempo as like Yellow Submarine, etc. Yeah, some sort of decent piano work, lots of vocal harmonies, double tracked. Um, I don't know what else to say about that. I didn't think that was an amazing track by any means. Again, there are things that did in that album that so far there have been things that have done that but better. So that sort of felt a bit redundant in my opinion. I mean, it certainly wasn't as fun as Good Day Sunshine or as Dr. Robber, which is again a different style, but it's vaguely comparable. Yeah, it feels like in this second half of the album, generally it's been a bit more conventional. I think a lot of the risks, well, apart from the last track, which is coming up, but a lot of the risks seem to have been taken in the first half of the album, and we get something a bit more classic, sort of early Beatles in this second half year. Obviously, with the exception of songs like For No One and etc. Yeah, I didn't really pick up on the lyrics on that too much. Certainly not like I did on Dr. Robert anyway. Yeah, I guess decent, cool little bass line here and there. But I just love that na 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 na, that guitar line. I wish if that song was just that guitar line, with like a song written around that, that would have been probably a 9 or a 10 out of 10. But they didn't know when they had something so good. That's so unfortunate. Maybe I can like interpolate that into one of my shitty songs. So yeah, so that was fine, nothing exceptional. About on a similar sort of quality level as something like a She Said, She Said, or well, like And Your Bird Can Sing, maybe, even something like that. I'd say that's about equal quality. Right, so it's starting to get really dark outside as we're going into the last two tracks on the album, both of which are truly iconic. So track 13 is Got to Get You Into My Life. Now, this is, again, not a song that I think I've just sat down and listened to, so it's a very similar situation to Yellow Submarine. And I also say, even so, I don't think I know it as well as I do Yellow Submarine, so I say we just get into it. This is track 13. Get ready to jam out to this one. Let's go. Okay, I mean, again, one of the most famous songs of all time, so I don't feel like I need to deliver as much detailed commentary on that as I do some of the more underappreciated ones. But unpopular opinion, really hot take. I actually don't like the chorus on that song. I don't like the "got to get you into my life." You know what I was talking about before a bit, where sort of some Beatles verses and choruses can sound a bit incongruous with each other. I think that's a really good example. I feel like that chorus is a really weird sort of payoff of the verses, and it doesn't really fit with the slightly more demure mood that the verses were going for, because that sort of melody there is a little bit atonal, a little bit loud and brash, almost. Which I've never been a big fan of that chorus, to be honest. I think there could have been something a bit more well written than just something that seemed like na 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 na, which in my opinion doesn't work melodically. Anyway, so that's my rant. Otherwise, I mean, it's a classic song. It's really great. The verses are great. The arrangement is fantastic. I like the horns in that song a lot. Like the horns are really cool. They give it this sort of march feel, and add to the real celebratory atmosphere of it. So I thought the horns fantastic. The mixing and production is great. I also love how at one point you hear the horns sort of climax and then easily meld into the guitar solo, which I think is pretty great. I don't think it was a guitar solo, but just the little guitar line that George Harrison was playing there. I think that was a neat little production trick. Yeah, lyrics were more just classic John Lennon sort of like vaguely love story esque musings, which nothing wrong with that. I think he does it well. And yeah, similar to the last track, there's not a whole lot else to say. I mean, that isn't really, aside from, I guess, using horns in rock music, which is probably pretty out there for the time, that isn't really a particularly revelatory track or anything. Like, I already know that track. Oh yeah, that's the first time I've sort of sat down and listened to it intently, but I know it's one of the most famous songs of all time. So, and that's the problem with reacting to the Beatles, because they're so ubiquitous in so many ways. But yeah, I mean that again did what it did fine. I don't think it added to the album nor did it detract to it too much. And yeah, it didn't take too many risks. I think this is a really great album so far, though. Well, pretty much. I mean, I know what the last track is, so I can assure you this is like an 8 out of 10 album, and it could be even higher on repeated listens. While some of the more obscure tracks like really take their time to soak in. But this is a fantastic album. The songwriting just on this album, generally front to back, is tip top. And I won't spend too much more time on Got to Get You Into My Life, because this video is running long in the tooth as it is, and plus we have my favorite, I think my favorite Beatles song to listen to next. Tomorrow Never Knows. I don't need to deliver commentary. Just I want you to listen to this ASAP. Let's go. Best Beatles song. Undeniably the best Beatles song. Literally their best song. I mean, it's close between that and maybe Come Together, from what I've heard so far, and also Taxman, I think, now. But that's the best Beatles song. For so many reasons, is that the best Beatles song. Like, I think I'll get my thoughts on this album as a whole done now, because I want to write an ode to how much I love Tomorrow Never Knows as a song. Great album. Really, generally, consistently great songwriting. Great production. Really interesting use of contrasting instrumental palettes and some interesting experimentation, especially in the second half, and then, of course, the final track there. Great work by all members of the band. There's some great Lennon... Taxman and Tomorrow Never Knows are fantastic Lennon songs. For No One is a great McCartney song. So is I think Eleanor Rigby is pretty good too. Love You Too is a kick-ass George Harrison song, and I love how confidently and with so much bravado launches himself into a style that had hitherto never been attempted in Western music. So there's that. I think all of that's pretty fantastic. Only thing that brings it down for me is a couple of songs that aren't as good. I mean, I'm Only Sleeping isn't that great. I guess And Your Bird Can Sing could be better. I Want to Tell You could be better. There's just little teething problems like that. There's some songs that won't be as amazing as the others. I mean, that's to be expected with any album, even with my favourite bands. But I think altogether that comes up to make an 8 out of 10 album, maybe even higher on repeated listens, and an album that I think deserves all of the reputation it gets as a really boundary-pushing and fascinating classic of modern rock music and just 20th century music in general. I see what people are saying when they say that this album bought art. Like, it was... I guess people say that about Sgt. Pepper's more, but I think it contributed to the eventual push of the Beatles towards bringing art and cultural legitimacy in the eyes of sort of the elite, the academic elite, to pop music at the time. I mean, you can see, no band at the time had done anything like Eleanor Rigby or done anything like Love You Too. And it was songs like that I think I can tell why that eventually eroded the snobbiness of the public consciousness and eventually made Beatles more than, like the stupid new band for like loser kids. So I just love this album and I love what it represents. It's fantastic. Okay, now let's talk about Tomorrow Never Knows. Tomorrow Never Knows is truly one of the best songs ever written. It is George Lennon's masterpiece. I mean, I haven't heard every Beatles song, but I can confidently say, unless there's something like literally world-defining, it is John Lennon's best song and one of my favourite songs of all time. Just the way every single element in that track comes together, from Ringo Starr's amazing drum part. That's my favourite Ringo Starr part. Just the simple and slightly off-kilter boom, 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 is something I would have never thought of as a drum part, and it's just so it just shows how relentlessly ingenious he is as a drummer. From that to the droned sort of, I think, sitar backing, to the amazing vocal melody. I love the na 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 and then the da na 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 na. I'm an absolute what's the word I'm looking for? I'm a sucker for just simple minor key melodies, and that was a simple minor key melody to rival pretty much any other. That was brilliant melody. John's voice is fantastic on it. I love how John's voice is treated too. It's treated with this slightly otherworldly edge to it, courtesy of, I'm guessing, George Martin produced this, like most of the other Beatles albums, or all of them. I think, no, Let It Be was Phil Spector, wasn't it? I think. I might be wrong anyway. That was great. Oh my god, the backmasked guitar solo with like the sort of backwards tape loops, I'm guessing, is how they achieved that. Adds to the spaciness of the track effortlessly. Truly effortlessly. The piano work at the end, the dun 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 dun, fantastic. The outro, fantastic. literally nothing to complain about with that track. Everything is brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Tomorrow Never Knows is possibly, it could actually possibly be, it's 66, right? It could possibly be my favourite track, my favourite song in history before that point in time. Now, I'll probably regret saying that when I think of something else, but before 67, I think that's my favourite track that had ever been released. Of the albums I've heard anyway, and that's saying something. It is genuinely that good as a song. It is the best Beatles song. It is one of the best songs of all time. Point, period, full stop. And you know, when you have a song that good on an album, it's amazing that parts of the album can even begin to live up to it, but they can. I mean, I think if we're talking top 3 tracks on this, like obviously Tomorrow Never Knows number 1, but 2 is Taxman, which is also, I think that's elevated to be a top. I think that's deep-throated. Gonna get demonetized. It's dethroned Within You Without You as my 3rd favourite Beatles track. I think Taxman fits in that there really well. I love how cynical and just classic John Lennon-esque that track is. And the sort of rock lurch of it, the really funky bass line, the way it's produced. I like the hard stereo panning, everything about it. Spot on. And 3rd place, that's actually tough. What is my 3rd favourite? I think I'd have to say Love You Too, I think. I think it's on par with Within You Without You in quality, Love You Too. I think it's a bit more energetic and less spacey as a track. But you know, there's just so much fantastic about it. I love the vocal melody on it and the way the tablas are played and the sitar, and I love how George just rips a guitar solo on the sitar, which is really funny. Assuming it's him playing it. Yeah, really fantastic track and one that I've added to my library for future listens, but also shout out to tracks like Dr. Robert, For No One, all fantastic. Here, There and Everywhere, really pretty song. And then just a bunch of songs that get the job done, like She Said, Got to Get You Into My Life, etc., etc. Eleanor Rigby too. Really, really strong album, guys. And I'm glad this chart finally made me get my ass into gear and listen to it. And that'll do it. So thank you so much, guys, for watching this video. I think this is going to be a mammoth length video because there's 14 tracks and I delivered pretty extensive commentary after all of them. So if you managed to get all the way here, thank you for watching it. Leave me any comment you'd like about anything you'd like me to know about this album, your experiences with this album, your favourite tracks, or just anything you'd like me to listen to on this channel in the future. I truly appreciate any comment and any like and any subscribe I get. So I think that'll wrap it up. Please like, subscribe, tell your friends about this channel, do all that good stuff, and I will see you in the next video. Please tell me Donda's dropped.